Brought to you by Polka, IT&E, and Cabo Enterprises. Let's just go right into the Zoom room where standing by we have the Lieutenant Governor of Guam, Lieutenant Governor Josh Tenorio. Good morning, LT.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Guam.
We're just going to give you the floor right off the bat. I mean, everybody is just talking about the governor testing positive for COVID-19. So here you go, LT. What would you like to say to the people?
Well, first, of course, we're continue to pray for the governor's recovery and the recovery of all of our residents who are currently fighting the infection. And I just want to assure everybody that we are doing everything we need to do to make sure that this government continues to battle the virus and continue to address all of the issues coming up. And thank everybody for their support and for their understanding.
Yeah, I was reading the release, and it said that you were tested, and so was John Jr. Both tested negative. But what about other close contacts that work at Adelup? Are they having to be tested or on quarantine?
Well, that's the contact tracing protocol will be in place, and they'll be taking a look at all of the contacts of the governor. She did have a few public meetings. She swore in some board members on Friday, and so all of that will be comprehensively addressed by public health and following the strict protocols.
LT, when they run through this contact trace investigation, I mean, it's a very real possibility that a lot of people in key positions might be forced into some type of preventive quarantine. Or so. That being said, are we going to still be able to run the government? I mean, is everyone just going to be on a Zoom if that happens?
Well, yeah, and we were able to run the government pretty much remotely when the first cases came up in March and April. And I'm very confident that everything will fall right into place. There are a large number of excellent public servants out there at all different levels that have responsibilities, and they will rise to the challenge. And we will all rise to the challenge to see this through.
What are the odds of us getting a Zoom tutorial for Lester Carlson?
Oh, I didn't see him. What happened?
What? I don't know. I don't know if it's just like, it's just gotten to this point where him and the legislature just like not. So what was it, Bree? Was it a static picture of him?
Yeah,
or
it was
yeah.
a static picture yesterday.
I mean, I feel like he's in his underwear having a beer if I can't see him on the Zoom feed. You know, and I know for Lester that wouldn't even be a stretch.
Yeah, it's not too early.
In that case, it would have been better to have the picture than that visual. Oh, that's Lester.
Yeah, and I mean on that, LT, what do you make of this? We had a bunch of senators yesterday saying, "Hey, why isn't the administration here?" I mean, it's kind of a big deal. What's your response to that? And I guess why weren't they there initially? And did you have to go and chew anybody out?
Well, I think that when they got the call, they came, and I think that's I see this every year. There's always going to be a dialogue. And I think right now the Office of Finance and Budget will present their case on what the rationale is with the revenues. Of course, we're all down the right direction, but there is little variation, and they'll have to hammer out the details. The members of the legislature will make their best decision on the collection experience for the government. I just would say that since we came into office, it's pretty clear that we've been focusing on tax collections, and we've increased our collections, and that really has made us be able to manage the government and respond to the pandemic the best way we can.
Did I hear that correctly, though, that we went from looking at a shortfall now to looking at a $29 million.
Let me track it for you. It went from a $45 million shortfall, which the Republicans were saying, and then the policy director came back and said, no, it's more like $8 million. And now it's a $29 million surplus. Is that what I'm hearing?
But that was from last fiscal year. So are you talking about the recent news yesterday with the financial audits for the year ending September 30, 2019? I'm sorry, September. Yeah, for the last fiscal year.
I'm just trying to figure out how much money we have. At this point, out I'm not a budget guy.
The fiscal year is not over yet, but remember that the audited financials come significantly after the close of the fiscal year, and then we were able to increase our collections and reduce the deficit. Now with this fiscal year, and now we'll see how we do, what kind of shortfall we'll have at the end of this fiscal year, and then of course plan for the revenues for next. So we're really talking about we talked about the last fiscal year. We're in the current fiscal year, and we're planning for the next all at the same time. So sometimes it can be a little confusing.
Yeah. LT, so we heard that you had a meeting with Superintendent John Fernandez yesterday. Can you tell us what transpired in that meeting?
Yeah, so we met with the superintendent, brought his team, his two associate superintendents, Erica Cruz, Joe Sanchez. By the way, it was on Zoom. Mm-hmm. That's how we meet. And the head of the school health counselors. And then I brought in the director of public health, the director of public works, and our recovery coordinator and our federal programs office, just to kind of get a sense on where things were. We talked, since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been working closely with DOE. We're able to use the personnel there to supplement our response efforts. And we do still have social workers that are embedded in the contact tracing team, which is an advantage, I would say, as the education board makes a decision about what the next step is. But for the last week, there has been a significant amount of work and collaboration going on between DOE, public health, and public works and civil defense to map out and support the school opening date that was determined by the Board of Education. And so we have on Thursday, I instructed civil defense to have a tabletop exercise so they can practice all the protocols and continue to increase the state of readiness no matter what happens and no matter what the education board decides today at 3:00. And so the posture for us is to try and give the most amount of support that is needed so that education can make their decisions appropriately. Mm-hmm. On the call, we did talk about, and I shared with the superintendent that anecdotally, of course, we've gotten phone calls from parents and from teachers, people in the workplace that have different opinions about their state of readiness or willingness to be in the workplace. And so I think that all the decisions, all of that, plus I think the Department of Education teachers have been in training at the schools with the staff. I imagine all of the sentiment and all of their operational readiness will be discussed today, and we'll see what the decision will be, if we're still on track or if there's going to be a variation. Mm-hmm. I think I've been hearing from board members that they're looking at different variations. So I want to see what is happening. No matter what the decision, we want to be in a situation to help.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you weren't informed of the decision before the announcement.
No. I mean, I think the decision is for the education board to make. Mm-hmm. The superintendent will make his recommendations, and then there are mostly elected folks on there, some appointed, and they will make the decision, I think.
Mm-hmm. But by the end of the discussion that you had with everyone yesterday, what were they leaning towards? Were we still going to be opening on the 17th? Are we still going to be doing the three different options?
Well, first of all, I think parents and families already have a choice, right? Mm-hmm. Even if school were to be face-to-face, instruction starts next week, there is an option for online / remote learning. And that, I think, was a critical thing to give people that option to make the best decisions for themselves and their families, keeping their personal situations in the forefront and applying that. And so, the education department, the officials indicated that they were confident in their opening plans. I still would like to see on Thursday after their tabletop, if there are any other things that need to occur. But I do recognize and respect that, and I'm curious to see what the decision will be. That being said, of course, the governor authorized schools to be open, and private schools have reopened, many of them this week. And of course, the situation changes, if we see further community spread and further causes for concern, we won't hesitate to make any further retractions of things that are allowed to be open. There isn't a decision right now to make any further decisions, but we track this on a daily basis, and as you can see from last week, we won't hesitate to act.
Right. Some schools, private schools, they have open, and I've gotten calls asking about this. What discussions did you guys have about bus transportation?
Well, bus transportation, there seems to, I think Public Works and the private schools are still working on the support. I asked that question actually, and I understand that there is communication that continues to occur there. But what I'm trying to do is make sure that if and when, or actually I guess when bus operations start, that at least for the primary schools, the elementary schools, I've asked that additional personnel, appropriate personnel, be on board to make sure that the kids are adhering to the social distancing policy and the occupation of the buses. There will be PPEs, there'll be masks and hand sanitizers on board the buses for kids who enter the bus without such. And we'll try and make sure we also submitted or transmitted a whole bunch of PPEs to the schools so that they're ready to open. That's the kind of support that we'll continue to give.
LT, so on the busing, are we just not busing any private school students at this point? Because I did get one of the private schools reached out and said that they were told by DPW, and we know this because we had Jess on last week, that the plans to bus students, at least for the public school students, are kind of still on the drawing board.
Right. It's all based on school enrollment. I think that right now it's trying to get a confirmed number. I mean, they've been planning with DOE as best they can to anticipate the number of kids that are going to be out there. And I believe the same thing has been occurring and is waiting on the private school side. And Chris, what I'll do is I'll get more info and see what the update is. But as I understand it, there have been a discussion where some schools were trying to recommend to Public Works to increase the capacity of the buses and allow more students on, and we're not going to do that. Our occupancy of buses is based on the recommendations of the Physicians Advisory Group and Public Health, and we will not depart from.
Right.
That may mean additional school buses needed to support the private schools, and we're prepared to do that. It's just really a lot of planning, and I'll get more info on the private schools.
Right, but what about bus drivers? Because I think when we talked to Jess, he said there was 140 school buses, and there was like 120, I think, bus drivers, but 30 of them had indicated that they have pre-existing health conditions and other sorts of concerns, that they're not going to be driving and operating these buses.
Right. So now we need to go out and hire some young bus drivers.
Well, we had already started the research with all the private bus companies that are actually not operating right now, the ones that are usually in support of the tourism sector. And that's a source of labor. Of course, we have to make sure that all of them meet the muster with all of the traffic records, and also making sure that there are appropriate people on buses. That means that nobody that has a conviction of criminal sexual conduct or a violent crime is eligible to be operating any school bus.
LT, I wanted to go back to this thing because I apologize. I know I sounded confused, but there was a story that Nestor did just yesterday. Stimulus tax collection contribute to new $29.5 million surplus projection. And I'll just go ahead and read from the story. According to the latest figures, GovGuam went from a projected $45 million shortfall by year's end to a $29.5 million surplus. With Budget Director Lester Carlson said they brought in more in income taxes than expected. Senator Regine Bisco Lee was among the senators who wanted to know how there was no apparent negative fiscal impact from the pandemic, despite a downturn in business. Budget Director Carlson and Administration Director Ed Byrne explained that this was because they collected more in income tax than expected, bolstered by federal stimulus money that's recirculating in the economy. But Carlson adds that the nearly $30 million surplus will likely be reduced because revenue from special funds such as the HOT and the immigration fees are way down because of the decline in tourism. So that's what I was talking about, LT, is like, I get what the senators are saying. It just really, like, how do we end up with a surplus? It's almost some like hocus pocus, alakazam, from a deficit to a surplus, bam! You know what I mean, LT? It is what it is. And so how
but it's all in the numbers. And so, we take a look at the CRER and we take a look at the actual collections that Revenue Tax has, and the Revenue and Tax Director, I believe, is going to be at the legislature, and everything is open for inspection.
Nice. Okay.
I'll just say that, we collect taxes, and if you owe taxes, pay the taxes. The other thing, of course, there's a drop in business privilege tax, and that's, I think, what Lester is saying.
Mm-hmm.
Hotel occupancy tax is down, the customs and user fee is down, but we have a customs operation. And so, that's kind of the complexities of the fiscal situation. Mm-hmm. But I would say that we are fortunate that we've been doing well in our collections on the income tax, and and continue to posture, try and contain the virus, and try and continue to move towards the recovery side of the business here.
LT, we got Jerry Perez from GVB coming up right after you to kind of talk tourism reopening. If we could just get your 2 cents on that subject.
I think the key things are going to be what the policies are in the source markets of Japan and Korea, and of course Taiwan to a lesser extent, and the work that we need to do here to make sure we contain the virus and to make sure that all the businesses are prepared for visitors, including local visitors. And I'd probably just encourage folks that have been here much longer, that been on island for 5-6 months longer than they have before. Maybe a staycation down in Tumon is in order, but do that with members of your own household and stay out there.
No check my pass.
Before we let you go, LT, I wanted to just ask and follow up on the governor and the fact that she is tested positive. And so I just wanted to ask you, what is exactly the protocol for succession and continuity for government and school, et cetera?
Well, the governor is still able to exercise her authority. She's has Zoom, she has the phone. We would only have a situation that occur in case she has to be absent. And then, of course, I naturally would take the reins. But, we are a team, and things are pretty much, other than the challenge that she has right now with her personal health, that's not going to impact our posture and our readiness to continue to lead our island.
Okay.
LT, what kind of mask was that you were wearing on the Friday press conference? Sorry, this is total random, but we were wondering.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it kind of stood out.
I guess some people didn't like it. So next time I'll wear this one.
What was it, though? Because I just saw the V.
It was a mask that, God, I wish hold on for a minute.
Okay. That's his mask bag.
The infamous mask, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe, I don't know where it is.
Careful,
but
I don't
it
want.
was just basically a pattern, kind of like one person who criticized told me, "Yeah, it looks like an island print, but it's not Chamorro." But I guess from afar, somebody said it looks like Angry Birds.
I just saw
like
a V.
Huge V. Yeah, from far away.
And you win some, you lose some. So I guess that mask turns out to be a fail.
All right, well, you should start doing Lady Gaga style mask changes during the press conference.
Or a Lady Gaga one. I'll try that one.
All right, LT.
Thanks,
you.
LT.
Thank you. Stay safe, please.
Yeah,
You
please
too.
be safe and let us know, if anything else happens.
All right.
Thank you. Wash
Thank
your
you.
hands. All right, 8:37. We'll take a really short break, and we're coming back.